There was more to Jay Leno's 2022 garage fire than an accident. It was an indication of how far had he fallen. After gasoline exploded, Thirtery's face was covered in burns that within his grasp. However, that wasn't the worst aspect. His union with Mavis is concealed the secrets that his admirers would find shocking. Their choice to forego having children is in the entire narrative. In private, Jay's world is collapsing. The individual who late-night television, which used to rule, is currently engaged in conflicts that no one can see. Additionally, time is coming to an end. On April 28, 1950, Jay Leno was born. James Douglas Muir Leno, in about 18 miles from Manhattan, is the small village of New Rochelle. His mom, at the age of 11, Catherine, left Scotland and never completed her high school education. She brought a constant sense of duty to the house and worked hard every day. His Angelo, the father, was an insurance salesman from Flumieri, a small Italian village. Their way of life was straightforward and every dollar was important. However, Jay grew up with two parents who never gave up, no matter how difficult things became. Fresh Rochelle wasn't elegant, but she was safe. Additionally, Jay spent his early years learning useful skills and assisting with tasks that, even before he grasped humor, taught him the importance of hard labor. Those unbeknownst to him, the early years strengthened him. The family relocated when Jay turned 7. He enrolled in the rigorous St. John's Preparatory School in Andover, Massachusetts. The IT was a Catholic place where everything seemed to be held together by regulations. Jay began to practically break those rules instantly, primarily due to his inability to control his humor. He would play practical jokes that make professors furious. He even detonated firecrackers once in class and came dangerously close to being expelled. On his 5th grade report card, his instructor noted that Jay would be a huge star if he put half as much effort into his studies as he did into his comedy. The amusing thing was that she didn't be aware that she was making predictions. Despite all the havoc he caused, he worked hard and never stopped challenging himself. His voice was molded during these school years, and his bravery, showing him how to transform mischief into time and timing into comedy. The serious one was Patrick, Jay's older brother. He was a Vietnam War soldier during one of the most difficult stages of the conflict, and he sustained severe burns from a fire during action that followed him for life. He returned home, put in a lot of study time, and eventually became a lawyer despite the agony. Jay greatly admired him. In 2002, those wounds' consequences finally killed Patrick, and Jay's entire world was rocked by the loss. He had always thought his brother was strong and unwavering, someone who persisted in moving forward despite the weight. Losing he caused Jay to reflect more on time, family, and the frailty of all things. That it remained in his heart and influenced the way he viewed the people he loved. As a teenager, Jay worked in Andover at any job he could find. When he was 14, he saved sufficient to purchase a 1934 Ford pickup, which he spent 2 years restoring. He worked at a Ford dealership where he went the long route during test drives and ate McDonald's hamburgers because he cherished the sound of the engine. Despite earning minimum income, he managed to save about everything. He learned discipline and financial prudence from those menial employment. Even after he rose to fame, he maintained the same routines and never went above his comfort zone. Once, his guidance counselor gave him a direct look at the eye and advised him to quit and continue eating at McDonald's. Jay recalled that day for the remainder of his existence. He wouldn't take it. After applying to Emerson College, he was accepted on a partial scholarship in 1968 and persevered despite all of his challenges. He was earned a degree in speech therapy in 1973. His mom's fondness for ancient accents and his fascination with voices was piqued by Scottish tales, and he soon became even more in the direction of humor than academia. He had already received a high school taste for acting. At a talent contest, he once played teachers so well that the entire room trembled with laughs, but he was suspended by the school for going too far. He didn't then recognize it. But he learned a valuable lesson from that experience. Laughter could uplift or anger people. Time was of the essence. Sensitivity was important. Speak was important. All of that would help him in the future. When he was 16, he purchased a 1963 B-Tup. The powerful 427 cubic inch engine of the Chevrolet Impala was a favorite among drag racers. Competitors. He took pals on joy drives and fixed it himself in the garage. He had a lifetime obsession with the car. Automobiles offered the freedom taught him at that age, and they shaped him into the person he was for the remainder of his life. Another gift came from his mother's Scottish heritage. She narrated tales using a calm tone and a dry wit that unexpectedly inserted jokes. Jay did some studying. Her, without even intending to. Her timing, humor, and voice were all saturated inside him and contributed to his early comedic approach. She made jokes with him that didn't always require loud noises. Sometimes all they needed was integrity and a little twist. While still a college student, he began performing in Boston clubs by 1970, making $20 or $25 per engagement. Occasionally, even at strip clubs if payment was required. Tuition. He made jokes about dating, teachers, buses, and dorm life. Simply simple moments that were identifiable to others. By his senior year, he began presenting minor events and talent shows on campus. He had discovered his beat. His voice had returned. 1973 saw him establish the Emerson Comedy Workshop. It was the first comedy club at the school, and more for the first show, more than 200 kids attended. His remarks regarding ordering everyone laughed at Broken Drive's fries because they seemed genuine. The club quickly expanded and contributed to the development of the early Boston comedy scene, which gave rise to well-known figures. Jay was unaware of it. Moment, but he had initiated a decades-long endeavor. He earned money by driving a school bus to continue his education. $1.50 per hour. He kept the children entertained with jokes because they were noisy and unruly. Serene. He eventually came to the realization that if he could make kids laugh at 7 in the morning, he could make any audience laugh in the morning. He learned crowd dynamics from that job. Control, rhythm, and the significance of tailoring the content to the person in front of him. He researched for his thesis. Patterns of speech in comedies. After listening to Don Rickles and Bob Hope, he reduced their tones and tempo. He rehearsed impressions, particularly of Richard Nixon, whose clumsy pauses and Jay imitated the hard delivery almost exactly. Students pleaded with him to perform it during events and parties. His early habits incorporated that impression, which helped him comprehend how the voice conveys a lot more humor than the text do. Following his graduation in 1973, Het traveled to Los Angeles with a van full of notebooks and just $300. The cost of gas was high due to the energy crisis, making each mile feel burdensome. He spent the night in his van for weeks and gave performances at open mics, often earning nothing more than lunch. A few he spent some nights sleeping in vacant homes left unoccupied by real estate brokers. It was difficult, but he persisted because each performance made him more seasoned. 1977 saw him make his everything changed when he made his Tonight Show debut. He discovered his first genuine composing a piece for Good Times and assisting Jimmy Walker with his punchlines. He even contributed to creating the collection that became well known throughout America. Meet. Working, he saw behind the scenes how jokes have to be funny to millions of people at once. He learned from that job. Structure and discipline. He energized audiences before celebrities at the Troubadour in West Hollywood, such as Tom Jones and Johnny Mathis. He joked, taunted the audience, and improvised about the peculiarities of the club. On other occasions, he was more well-known than the main performers. It prepared him to deal with whatever room, even the most difficult ones. He was doing shows at the Comedy Store by 1976, almost 300 nights annually. In order to make a statement, he drove his motorcycle directly into to the stage and the club. People adored it. There was smoke everywhere. Commotion and famished comedians. Jay persisted, though. It was worth the long nights. His talent level increased with each performance. But money was scarce. He lived in his Lincoln Continental in the middle of the 1970s, took showers at the YMCA, and vending machines provided the food. However, he continued phoning clubs to request stage time and done for free if necessary. He became extremely tough as a result of the conflict. This gave each subsequent achievement a sense of merit. He landed his first film role, American Hot Wax, 1978. He made $500, hardly enough to pay his bills. It didn't make him famous, but it gave him hope that even little doors could open. At age 26, Jay Leno appeared on the stage of Johnny Carson's Tonight Show on March 2, 1977. And it seemed like the time his entire life had been building up to. He had just 5 minutes to show himself. He was discussed commonplace occurrences and familial peculiarities that were understood by all, and the crowd immediately focused on him. When he was done, the crowd was standing up. Even Johnny Carson, who hardly ever gave newcomers credit, hailed. He claimed he might be the next big thing and kept his demeanor tidy and approachable. The show was the door that all comedians aspired to enter. And everything began to move as soon as Jay passed through it. Quick. Throughout the late 1970s, he continued to return, becoming a well-known figure to viewers at home. And after this debut, he went from being a club comic to a national designation. He soon secured a reliable position on the Marilyn Marquand, the 1977 Billy Davis Jr. performance. It was the very first series on the network. Jay was featured in all 6 of the episodes that summer, which were hosted by a black couple. He delivered every week speeches that combined jokes about current affairs with remarks about his appearance, particularly his jaw, which people never ceased discussing. On Friday evenings, families attended the performance. Additionally, Jay used that opportunity to try new things and improve his timing. When the summer is over, he was well known not only as a club comedian, but also for his ability to engage a wide range of audiences. That development prepared him for everything that followed. Jay's debut HBO comedy was taped in 1985. 8 years later, Jay Leno and the American Dream live at the Wilton Theater in Los Angeles. 1.2 million people watched it, which was a significant number for a comedy show on television. Back then. He made jokes about American consumer behavior, politics during the Reagan period, and odd things individuals do on a daily basis. There were several supporters at the wheel spin who had witnessed his ascent from little clubs to large venues. That particular confirmation what people were beginning to think. Jay was a well-known comedian with a keen intellect, a common voice, and the ability to blend comedy and reality. The special's popularity led to further significant appearances and brought him closer to his own late-night future. He was touring the nation by 1986. Oni Heckler tossed a bottle of beer at the stage throughout the night at Zanies in Chicago. Rather than losing his composure, Jay turned the entire room, turned on the heckler during a 10-minute ad-lib roast. His sharp mind saved the evening and turned into a tale that comedians still discuss. His performances continued to sell out. He was one of the most reliable performers in the industry thanks to his enthusiasm on stage and nation. These incidents established a reputation that TV networks respected, and he would soon have more opportunities to appear on The Tonight Show. In 1987, NB designated Jay Johnny Carson's permanent guest host. Over 50 times a year, he filled in. Carson was almost trusting this was a unique honor because no one else had that seat. Jay added details like Ash would stop individuals on the street while jaywalking and ask them straightforward questions like who developed the telephone or who was president during World War II. The incorrect responses were so absurd that the part gained legendary status. He continued to appear on the show until he seemed to fit in with the audience. When Carson departed in 1992, Jay felt like the obvious choice to be the next host. However, it was not easy to get the position. When Jay and David Letterman were engaged in a heated argument when Carson announced his departure, Jay appeared at a press conference hosted by NBC regarding the change while wearing glasses and a fake nose. Silently, he made his way through the throng, posing queries to recognize the atmosphere in the space. It helped him understand what executives desired. And the opinions of the media. He was able to shape his pitch and advance in the game with this odd but astute maneuver. Compete for the position. It was later referred to as one of The Tonight Show battle's most audacious moments. On May 25, 1992, as The Tonight Show's new official host, he took the stage. The 16.1 million people watched the premiere, making it one of the largest late-night debuts. Past. He began by making light of President George H.W. Bush, who was having trouble winning re-election. The first visitor was Billy Crystal. The evening demonstrated Jay's ability to carry the display with assurance. It also demonstrated the enormity of the crowd anticipating his performance as Carson's replacement. Behind the scenes, the situation was disorganized. Helen Kushnick, the show's producer, imposed a policy that prohibited visitors from calling the show directly. She desired everything. She was in charge of bookings and pressured managers and agents to place their stars on The Tonight Show before any other program. As a result, there were heated arguments with publicists and even a fight with the Arsenio Hall production. The crew was unpleasant because of her threats and outbursts. Individuals leave. Agents 4 months after the show's premiere, NBC eventually fired her when she protested. Everyone was uneasy about the atmosphere she left behind, but Jay persisted in defending her. Tension increased when she openly said that she was misinterpreted. Jay agreed to a $40 million, 5-year contract in 1993. It was evidence that, despite everything going on, NBC still had faith in him. Kushnick's Jay's extension demonstrated that he was there to stay, and his termination put an end to a difficult chapter. In 1995, 2 years later, for Outstanding Variety Series, the program received its first primetime Emmy. The victory helped stabilize the group and demonstrated that, despite everything, viewers could still relate to Jay's skill and sense of humor to challenges that occur behind the scenes. From 1995 to 2000, Jay attained his peak. On January 26, 1998, one of his most significant events occurred when President Bill Clinton, a few days after the Monica Lewinsky affair, Clinton sat across from him. Jay created an interview that attracted almost 20 million viewers by combining fun with thoughtful questions. It was among the most seen late-night shows ever and demonstrated Jay's ability to manage contentious political situations while still being humorous. He also developed a weekly feature throughout these years called 1996 Headlines. He displayed odd clippings from the actual world from newspapers, with fans providing the most hilarious ones. By 1997, the program gathered more than 100,000 submissions annually. A man suing his toilet was one headline that people would never forget. For psychological anguish. The segment gained such much popularity that additional programs began imitating it, which kept The Tonight Show entertaining and new. In the year 1998, Jay extended his deal once more, this time for an additional 5 years and $100 million. He became the highest-paid late-night host of his time as a result. He used a lot of that money on his passion for automobiles. In Burbank, he constructed a massive garage with more than by 2005, 180 automobiles, including unique items like a 1906 steamer, Stanley. He performed his own repairs on numerous vehicles, repairing engines and refining the details. His collection became an integral part of who he was, and occasionally shared their stories on the autos on the show. Following the September 11, 2001 attacks, Jay aimed to raise awareness by conducting remote broadcasts from locations such as Camp Pendleton. Encourage and support the troops. His earnings from those episodes were given to funds for relief. These programs combined poignant moments with lighthearted humor and became some of his career's most significant moments. In 2004, he commemorated his The Tonight Show's 3,000th show. The evening was crowded with visitors from the past, such as Arnold Schwarzenegger, who notably declared his intention to run for governor on the program in 2003. Jay had now entertained over 2,500 people and had established himself as a history of late nights that not even Johnny Carson could match. The significant event demonstrated the extent to which he had influenced American television and the progress he had made since when he entered Carson's stage for the first 5-minute performance in 1977 and altered his life. On November 30th, 1995, Howard Stern entered The Tonight Show with the type of energy that caused the calmest place to tremble. Jay Leno anticipated jokes and perhaps some mayhem, but he was surprised by what transpired. Stern brought two models, Janine Linda and Nikki Tyler, wearing bikinis that had already made the audience yells with delight. He then instructed them to share a kiss in front of the studio lights. The clamor of the crowd increased. Leno made an effort to grin, but his eyes were constantly darting as if he was waiting for someone to turn off the electricity. Prior to him, Stern went one step farther and began sucking one of the model's toes live in order to advance the program. TV. The crowd sent forth a yell. Leno stopped. He attempted to move on to the next portion, but the cacophony persisted. At the commercial pause, he couldn't even hear himself thinking, so he left the set. Later, NBC cut the whole scene from the last program. But the following morning, Stern boasted that he had exceeded what anyone would consider appropriate. Lowe told him over the phone that it was outright debauchery. Everything changed in that one instant. Stern was never asked to return, and NBC spent months addressing irate viewers who questioned how it was ever broadcast. There was more tension surrounding Leno than that. The conflict between him and David since Johnny Carson's resignation in 1992, Letterman has been growing, and NBC copped for Leno over Letterman. People murmured throughout the network that to cast doubt on Letterman, Leno's team has disseminated rumors about his private life. A few insiders said that it was an effort to disqualify Letterman. It was alleged that Helen Kushnick, the manager, told the network executives these stories directly. Letterman's loss of the position, he left NBC to start The Late Show on CBS, placing himself in Every Night, directly across from Leno. During the 1990s, Letterman made jokes regarding Leno didn't sound funny when he was on the air. It sounded painful. And rage. Both men continued to discuss the feud in interviews even years later. Although the entire media flurry was embarrassing, Letterman acknowledged that the decision was still painful. That protracted battle influenced late-night television for many years. Conan O'Brien was the biggest storm. In 2004, Leno pledged. In 2009, Conan announced his departure from The Tonight Show. He made the statement on camera with a smile, giving the impression that it was the smoothest handoff in television history. After NBC finalized the agreement, Conan spent the following 5 years getting ready for his ideal position. However, Leno refused to go when 2009 came around. NBC constructed a new concert at 10 p.m. in an effort to maintain everyone's satisfaction. Rather, his ratings blew up. Conan's numbers also declined. Several affiliates expressed dissatisfaction with Leno's show was negatively impacting their evening news. In a frenzy, NBC informed Conan that they wanted to transfer him to 12:05 a.m. See you soon.